Hey everybody, this is Sean Dustin and Aurora Eggert from the Borealis Experience, and I'm obviously from the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Today we have a guest with us. This is our third episode that we've been doing this. If you want to know a little bit more information and you don't know quite what we do here, go into the description and there will be an explanation as to what this is and why we're doing it. We have Annette, also known as Cave Girl Claire, or you can find her at cavedwellerclub.com.
Hey, everybody. This is Sean Dustin and Aurora.
What is that?
There's echo. No. Something. I don't know. Anyways, so I'm going to go ahead and share this, and I'm going to share this to Aurora's timeline. While I'm doing that, go ahead and take over, Aurora. And this is your first time meeting Annette, so get acquainted.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for making the time and for being here with us. I read that you got curious about our little mission here because Sean is so open-minded. And by the way, he received a huge award as a Best Mental Health Podcast. So applause to him.
What? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And you got curious about me because I'm ready to take accountability for some behavior that, we as women exhibit. And I feel the need to talk about it. And you obviously liked it, and you have lots of stuff to share with us here today. So I'm excited to get to know you and learn from you. And go on and introduce yourself to our lovely listeners here.
I'm excited to be here. Yes, I was very encouraged by your guys' take on human behavior. And there were just a couple of things that really jumped out at me and made me think that maybe some of what I've learned about specifically evolutionary psychology and human behavior might be fun to kind of just kick around, not like, as Sean says, this isn't going to be like a course, as he calls it, but just some ideas to kind of take the pressure off you guys a little bit, not in a way that would excuse your behavior, but maybe explain it in a way that, I don't know, is a little more forgiving. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Did we seem like we were really hard on ourselves?
No, it's just some of the things, it's hard to explain because some of the things, they made perfect sense and you were being completely open and it was encouraging to hear. But I think people in general are hard on themselves because they don't understand where our psychology is kind of developed in a way. And that's kind of what I wanted to try and talk about.
Okay.
That's so cool.
And your background, did you, as I was doing that, I was trying to share this to different groups. Did you explain a little bit about your background already?
No. So I have a master's degree in educational psychology, which I got about 30 years ago. But about 30 years ago, there was this other kind of pocket of psychology called evolutionary psychology. And I couldn't really study it because it wasn't, it didn't have a bunch of research behind it. It was just kind of a couple of researchers that I've since met and kind of kicked around some ideas with. And so, 30 years later, I had an experience where I couldn't explain my behavior and it really kind of bothered me. And when I went back, my jam is like research. So when I have an issue or problem, that's just kind of where I go. I start looking at research, and that's just, it makes me feel better, I guess. So I did that, and I kind of rediscovered this little pocket of psychology, and it started not justifying my behavior, but it was kind of explaining it in a way that was like, oh, okay, it doesn't make me sound so crazy, like almost like a rationalization, but not quite. And so when I started kind of looking at the world from this perspective, this evolutionary perspective, other things that didn't make sense to me started making sense. And I was like, whoa, maybe there's something to this. Like, because I'm pretty suspicious by nature. That's why, I poke at things and make sure that, I believe them. So, and this kind of explained a few things. So I have a master's in psychology, but it's not evolutionary psychology. That's my long answer.
Well, I'm fascinated to know. I mean, we had a short conversation when I was in the airport going to, I think it was on my way to Florida, and we talked a little bit about what you were talking about, but I'm still, like you said, there was so much going on. I had so many distractions. I definitely would like to hear more about it. And I'm always interested in finding out why I do some of the effed up things that I do or have done in my life. And, what it's attributed to, and like I have my own suspicions and my own ideas, but I mean I know that there's a lot that evolution plays in how we do things, DNA, genetics, even into the kind of what do they call that? They call that generational.
Epigenetics?
No,
Epigenetics.
Is it epigenetics? The generational trauma?
Yeah.
Okay. So shoot, go for it.
Gosh, it's so big. I feel like I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start with how I feel like I know a little bit more about cave dwellers, as I call them, than the average person. How about that? Does that seem like it might move us forward, but not too fast? Like
Cave dwellers,
Yes.
meaning like us as a species.
Yeah.
'Cause,
So go ahead.
like we were hunter gatherers at one point, right? And then something happened, and we were all forced to go into cave dwelling, right? Something like that.
Well, the cave dwelling time happened at the same time as hunter gatherer time, and the main difference between us as modern people and people that were hunter gatherers is they were nomadic. They moved around. That's how they got their food. They followed herds, they followed seasons. That's how they stayed alive. They didn't stay in one place for very long. So the main, and there are hunter-gatherer societies still on the planet. Not everyone lives like what I call a modern person, but there are modern day hunter-gatherers. I just want to clarify that. So if we're talking about people who are no longer nomadic, that's like a big chunk of the world now. And that shift has affected our psychologies a little more than I think modern people think about. And that's just something that I think about.
So as we've kind of evolved, right, and we've gone into being more of a modern society, I think some of the things that we don't experience anymore are dangers, right? The kind of dangers that we used to experience all the time. And like, we don't have to worry about walking around and getting eaten by a lion, or we don't have to worry about, going looking for food, hunting, and another tribe attacking us, right? And so all of those things sort of, kind of were built into who we were and how we perceived the things around us and lived our lives. Now we don't have that. I mean, there are some dangers. I mean, obviously, don't go to the ghetto in the middle of the night, or, so, I won't even say ghetto. Let's just say to the badder parts of, maybe a city or a town or, whatever it is you want to call it. We don't go there in the night because it's dangerous.
Yeah, well,
So,
it's unfamiliar. That's what's scary about it.
yeah. Okay. So now how does that play into like, Aurora and ourselves? We were, abusive people. We, treated people in a way that, is probably not looked at very kindly. If you were to, if you were to just, come out and say, well, this is, what I did. And we've done that. We've said that. We've talked about how we were. And that's not the norm.
No.
But is that...
You mean talking about it's not the norm?
Well, talking about it's not the norm, but actually acting that way, I don't think is the norm as well, unless it happens way more than we think.
I think it does. What you guys talk about is kind of, I don't want to say extreme versions of it, but I think at some level. Okay, so let me try it from this angle. When we were in tribes, we knew every person we lived with very, very well. They're the only people, let's call it 100 people. They were the only people we ever knew, basically, living day to day. Maybe we would come across another tribe. And when most people talk about tribal behavior, the first thing that pops into their head is tribe versus tribe, right? Like a tribal behavior is fighting for resources or something like that. But in my head, what's more interesting to me is what went on between tribe members. So that's kind of how I look at interpersonal relationships now. I imagine what would it have been like back then when we only had 100 people to deal with and to know. And so that's a little bit different than even the general study of evolutionary psychology. It's kind of more of a big picture. And I think it's more interesting to talk about the psychology part of evolutionary psychology, like thinking about how life would have been. I mean, imagine only knowing 100 people your whole life. That would be pretty cool if you were a cave dweller, because like you said, life when you're a cave dweller is super scary. You're part of the food chain, it gets dark, there's very little time to like just chill, right? You're just constantly scared. It's like a state you're in almost all the time, except when you're with your tribe. So I think we have remnants of this assumption or this belief as modern people that the people immediately around us should be on our team, on our side, and in some ways literally thinking the way that we think. Because when we were living in a tribe, we had to basically think with one mind. The only thing we did all day, every day was look for food and share it. That's all we did. It's hard to imagine, but that's how I imagine our psychology. Part of our psychologies were developed during this time. And so when you get in an interpersonal relationship with someone, and at some level, we're not aware of this because it's so old and ingrained in our minds, we expect the people immediately around us to be on our page, on our exact page and on our wavelength. And when they're not, I think there's this moment of fear, like, oh crap, this person is not in my head. And it's a scary feeling.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, Annette.
Yes.
So would you say that abusive behavior stems from a wound that we have experienced in the past, and it's our way to protect ourselves now? Like when we aggress someone else, we protect ourselves, which doesn't really make sense because then the whole mess starts. But that's just how our system was wired to react when something scares us?
Yes, mostly. Short answer, yes. But what I like to talk, it's a fear response. You're totally right. Like, but it's just an instant, like, oh, this person doesn't know what I'm thinking. There's something amiss. Like, can I trust this person now? It's this, every living thing in my head is on a continuum between trust and fear. So any point of any day, you're going about your day, you're somewhere on this continuum. And when you get bumped into fear without your kind of consciously knowing about it, then you do things like lash out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fear thing. And as cave dwellers, if we were scared of something, it was either fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
But as modern people, we have this extra special thing that we can do, which is control.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to control the thing that scares us.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, and I think the analogy is that, and I've done this before, and I'll explain. So when I've been in, let's say I've pushed my significant other to the point where they now want to leave, the fear starts setting in. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't, am I going to be able to survive on my own? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to do that? How am I ever going to find, somebody else? Who am I going to have sex with? All of these things start coming into play. And instead of doing the thing that I know would probably salvage the maybe salvage the relationship, maybe show some remorse or something, other than trying to control the situation. What ended up happening is that I do the behaviors that will produce the exact thing that I don't want to have happen even more. And
Is
so
that
I
because you feel scared? Or, I
well,
mean,
it's in an effort to control it, but the fear is what kicked it off.
mhm.
And so instead of, okay, well, let me try to bully them into, doing what I want them to do, or scare them into staying, or, saying things like, oh, you'll never find anybody better than me, or all these things, these tactics that come out, to manipulate, to, try to control. It's all an effort of trying to control the situation and control what they do.
Mhm.
And
But
at
other
least
people aren't part of the environment. Like, I think it's hard for us to differentiate sometimes.
differentiate, like, what do you mean? The other people aren't part of the environment. So like, since
Well,
we're not in a village setting where everything is open, and that behavior, like, we're behind closed doors more than we are out in the open. So is that what you mean?
it's more like it's as modern people, we feel like we have control over a lot of things. We can control light, we can control temperature. I think we have this kind of um, almost a belief that we can control everything around us. And if there's something in the environment we can't control, then we kick into fear and we're like, oh, we can't control this. And it's like another person is different than a lamp. But I think sometimes we have, as modern people, we have this aura, this kind of magical belief that we could control this other person, and it doesn't fit with our current environment. Like in our old environment, what we could trust in our environment as like hunter gatherers was other people. Like because we were thinking with one mind, we were all doing the same thing all day, every day, and everything else outside the tribe was the thing that was scary. And other people made us feel safe. Other people were our protection, our predictability, our and so now we're in a modern world, and at some level we're still thinking that these the people, especially the people in our immediate environment, our significant others, should be on our page. And then when they're not, it's startling.
What do you think, Aurora?
I think I totally understand Annette's angle, but I know from my story, from myself, that it was not that the people were not on my page. It was that I was scared of an outcome that would hurt me, and I wanted to anticipate. And sometimes in picking a fight, and you know the other person a little bit, you know how they're going to react. Instead of living in harmony is strange for me. It's not familiar because my life was not always harmonious. So I'm more in expectance of something that is going to disturb. So I should disturb. And then this is familiar, even though it's uncomfortable. But I have a hard time to understand the not being on the same page, because I see the enemy in the other, because I fear they have control over my well-being.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And see, this is I don't know, this is hard for me to talk about, but we weren't always cave dwellers. There was a time when we were tree dwellers too, and so let me say it this way. There was a time when we couldn't talk to each other, and we were dependent on things like hierarchies to get through our day. When we couldn't talk to each other and we had to do something together, there was a boss, a head honcho, and then everyone else falls into a hierarchy. So everyone has a role, a controlling role or a following role, and it's all organized, and it worked until we could talk to each other, and then that kind of messed things up a little bit. So in my head, there was a time when we couldn't talk to each other and we were dependent on hierarchies, and I call this the win-lose era, where someone was winning and someone was losing. There was someone in control and there were people that were following. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. Like in your growing up when you were a kid, there was a winner and a loser.
Yes, powerlessness.
You felt powerless, and you were either going to be powerful or powerless.
Yes, exactly.
And that is, it's more cut and dry. And as we evolved and got other tools and can talk to each other, we moved into a time when we were more win-win, not win-lose. Like if you're in a group and everyone benefits, if everyone cooperates, that's a different tool that we have in our psyches. So you're talking about the psyche that we had even before we were cave dwellers. It's the time when we couldn't talk and everything was win-lose as opposed to win-win. So I think that's why humans are so confusing and get confused, is we have so many sets of tools that we can use to communicate with each other, and we're not aware that we have these separate modes. And when you get kicked into fear, you're like win-lose. That's your mode. I'm either winning or losing.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, totally.
There's a good question here. Roman Jones chimes in with, is that maybe because everyone isn't working towards a common goal of what's best for the group, but instead everyone is working towards individual goals?
Totally.
Great question, Roman. Thank you.
Excellent.
Now, and also too, it wasn't there, the human brain is only capable of recognizing so many people in it, right? Like you're memorizing, like you have a catalog of people that are in your head, and it only goes up to a certain amount of people, and then after that you don't recognize them anymore.
It's harder to we start compartmentalizing. So let's say you see an African American face, they all look the same because maybe you don't have a lot of experience with that kind of face. So yes and no. There's this number called Dunbar's number, which is...
That's the one I was looking for.
Okay, so you knew, yeah. It's technically 147.3, which is stupid. But
like what's 0.3 of a person?
Because they made a chart.
Maybe.
They're addicted to their chart. It's fine. But in real life, whatever. So Dunbar's number is, he himself is still alive. He is one of the few ideas in evolutionary psychology that almost every researcher agrees on. It's the number which systems start breaking down. Like if you have more than 150 people, things get confusing. And most people who study evolutionary psychology agree that that is because we probably didn't go larger than 150 people in a tribe. So you're right, there is a limit to what we can kind of take in.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that since society has become so large and we have so many folks in it, and that we are we're in a tribal mentality a lot of times, and things sort of shift there when certain things happen. But as far as, I've lived in plenty of places where I have no idea what my neighbors, who my neighbor was. I lived in an apartment complex and didn't know who was to the left or right, above or below me. And it seems like it's been normalized to not like know your neighbors, when those are the people that, like, if the proverbial shit was to hit the fan, the people in your neighborhoods are the ones that are closest to you and that you would need to count on to go to help for if you needed it, right?
Right. And I think it's a very unnatural way to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is stressful. And I don't know, we live more isolated now than we used to, or we are wired to, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, as it pertains to like behavioral, so evolutionary psychology, does that have anything to do, like Graham Hancock? Do you know that name?
Mm-mm.
He was somebody that did talked about the drier, the younger era, and when we had the Great Flood and all the other stuff that went along with that. I can't remember what it is. I shouldn't open my mouth unless I knew exactly what I was talking about.
You never know. I could have known.
Bits and pieces of Rogan information, Joe Rogan podcast, and the people he has on there stuck in my head.
He's had some researchers I know on.
Well, I love researchers because I'm not one. And like I'm ADHD, and like to sit there and do that is like really difficult for me. Even just to sit here in my area and try to do things, it's hard because it's like if I got a bunch of windows open and it's like, oh, I got to go over here. Oh, wait a minute. Damn, what were you doing? Go back to what you were doing.
Sidetrack.
Yeah, I get sidetracked really easy. But as this pertains to, our abusive behaviors and the things that were learned, because I think a lot of what I did was learned over a long period of time. Like we're talking 40 years of bad behavior that kind of has been ingrained through, and I think a lot of this is successes, the win-lose thing, right? If I kept doing a lot of these things because I kept winning, it kept working. And so if it was working, like manipulating women and using women to, as a means to, finding support, like financial support, when I didn't have a job, let's go shack up with a chick. Well, usually the opposite is, women find it a lot easier to play that card, for safety, in finding safety in a man, right?
But you just said the same thing about a woman. I think we all just go through life to survive.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's. I mean, what I just explained. I did it, and women do that as well. I guess we all do it to a certain extent.
Just people. I get annoying because I don't like categorizing things. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's this is a conversation and a collaboration of ideas, and all ideas are good until they're not, right?
Well, that's what I really am impressed with you guys, because I have this like theory that people walk around with a set of beliefs just to get them through life, because there is too much information coming at us. Our psychologies kind of have to compartmentalize or rationalize to have things kind of make sense to us. And some people are in a soap bubble, so their beliefs are kind of fragile, and if you get near them, they get nervous. But you guys have had enough experiences to where your belief system in my head is more like a balloon. So if you have a balloon and it's not totally full, you can add air, you can squish it a little bit, and you can decide if you want to have that in your balloon or if you don't want to have that in your balloon. So that's why another reason I reached out, I was like, they can handle like a kind of strange idea and decide if they like it or not. They're not gonna freak out just because I have a different perspective,
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. When it comes to that phase in your life where you realize that you have been the abusive person, when you kind of come out of the victim mentality that, oh, everybody leaves me, nobody loves me, when you realize, oh shit, like actually I did stuff to repel people, to scare people off, what would you say, like, how can the journey be sustainable? How can we learn to not fall back into these patterns? Because it is so incredibly easy, right? I don't know if I can speak for Sean too, but we both learned that it works. We just realized, okay, it's maybe not awesome, but how can we, like neuroplasticity, let's talk about neuroplasticity. How can we relearn new pathways? Is it in being in a relationship, or can we also do it outside of a relationship? Do you know what I mean? Like
I totally do.
some things we can only learn as a team or when we're exposed to situations, and some things we can learn by ourselves.
I totally get what you're saying, and it totally fits with the continuum of trust and fear. If you can kind of learn to identify when you're behaving in a fearful way, it becomes easier to kind of, whoa, not stop yourself, but as you're doing it, or maybe after you do it, if you take responsibility for being afraid, and say, I was afraid just then, let me try that again. And if you can just kind of make it a habit of knowing where you are on the continuum, like if you feel yourself going win-lose, be like, okay, you want to move yourself toward trust. And I think that takes being with other people, like your question about, because you have to practice it. You can't just like, it's easy when you're by yourself to be in trust because you have no one to worry about, right?
Yeah.
You got nobody calling you on your shit.
That too, but you can't overreact, and that's the tricky part, because I think we're all kind of primed as modern people to have a fear response, because we're not living the way our brains kind of are used to. And it seems odd to think of the brain as still thinking that the way it did 10,000 years ago before we started farming. But when I process human behavior with that assumption, so many things make so much more sense. I don't know. It's fascinating to me.
I have this strange idea of like, because we essentially have two different brains in our body. We have this one right here, and then we have the gut biome, which is full of bacterias and other things that make different chemicals and cause different reactions in our emotions and our things. I honestly think that when we talk about aliens, right? I think the bacteria that are in our body are aliens, to be honest with you, and they have control of it. Like, we're an avatar, right?
It
we're
feels like that.
Yeah, we're an avatar, and whatever's in our biome, and making these different chemicals, and the epinephrine, norepinephrine, all these different things that kind of control, whether we're hungry, whether we're angry, whether we're tired, whether we're all these things. It feels like sometimes that we're not even in control. We're just let's go this way, just being played by something. And I don't know, maybe I'm somewhat on, but that's just kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't agree about the alien stuff, but I think that comes from our very distant past, like our ancestral experiences, and I don't think that we're not in control at all. It's just we're not really in tune. Okay, so here's the thing. Just last week, I read about this researcher who she described how the brain can't see, but it's in charge of us. So imagine getting information from your biome or your chemicals or a sound, but you can't see the actual environment, but you're trying to control this body. And all you're getting is images or information from inside the body. Like, it's this strange picture that popped in my head. It's like our brains are blind. And depending on how much experience we have in life, like if you go through your life and you have a very peaceful childhood and then something bad happens, it's like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. And then if you have like a childhood that's kind of rocky, that's what you are used to. Your brain is like, okay, this is life. This is and you can get through life with a little more up and down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
but like what Aurora was saying earlier, the familiarity of something, right? So the person that's had the rocky, I had a rocky, upbringing, and a lot of chaos, a lot of, stuff going on, yelling, and to where I'm like really sensitive. Like, if somebody starts yelling at me now, it's like immediately, that's what flips me out.
Mm-hmm.
And also too, if things are going too well, because I'm not used to smooth rides, right? I will do something to purposely knock the train off the track and cause chaos, because that's where I'm familiar. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
okay, I'm back home. You know what I mean? I
Totally.
understand this.
Yeah. And that's why people create patterns sometimes. Like, if your parent smokes, you'll smoke most likely, because that's what's familiar and that's what's predictable. And we kind of recreate. When I say things should be predictable, I just mean familiar. I don't mean like everything's in place and everything's perfect. But I don't know, like Aurora was saying, like she doesn't want to be the loser. She wants to be the winner. But if she could become aware of when she's in fear and when she's in trust, maybe there's the win-win. There's the middle ground where you can, like, okay, I was scared. I'm going to try and calm down and look at this from another person's perspective, and don't kind of close up and think I'm all alone. I have to do something and panic. If you trust the other person, even just a little bit, you can like work your way toward, okay, that worked all right. Now let's try it with another person, and you kind of like make your in-group bigger and bigger. It sounds cheesy, but I don't know. That's what like I wanted to tell you guys while I was listening to you talk to each other.
No, that's beautiful. And it makes total sense.
So Amanda Brooks chimes in with, technology has evolved faster than our brains can assimilate it fully. That's true.
Totally true. And we're so reliant on technology now that it's all coming too fast, in my opinion. Our brains are like short-circuiting a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And then when it comes to online dating, I feel there's so many frustrated people out there. And I just think, man, we're not meant to meet like that. Like the non-verbal cues, the scent, like the subtle things that you see right away when you see a person live, you don't see on a profile picture. And people are not aware enough to put that into their little bio. So it's very tough, and we have to be careful to learn how to use technology and to not forget that we're still animals. We still we want to be primal, we want to be wild, and we're not robots yet.
Not yet, but we better watch out.
Transhumanism is coming.
I don't want it to.
So on what you were saying, Aurora, that the scent, I think that's a huge one, because what were pheromones about, right? Why do people have pheromones? And when you wear cologne or perfume, you mask that and you can't smell that anymore. And so it's almost like when the craziest thing I ever saw was when my daughter and my ex, when she was breastfeeding, when she would put her skin to skin, and that chemical reaction that happened that caused her to start lactating. So I mean, if that's possible, right, that our chemicals are that cause reactions in our body, then there has to be something to the pheromone thing, because when it's almost like that, like an intuitive thing, right? And
Totally.
that's gone
Online, if you don't have that. But then again, if you add cologne, that masks
exactly
like a true, right? So there's different ways to we don't even know we're manipulating each other. It's so interesting. But when you talk about online dating, I just want to say quickly, you're also dealing with an individual person. You don't know how many friends that person has. You don't know how they treat other people. And then you like awkwardly go meet this person, and they could behave any way they want. And there's no friend there to call them on their shit, right? So I think for another reason, besides not being able to really get a sense of a person, I think it's more natural to like meet a friend of a friend, because there's some accountability there. And that's another thing we had when we were in tribes, is accountability, because you knew 100 people and that's all you knew. There was no one that could pretend to be something they weren't. And that's pretty cool. But our brains kind of they're kind of stuck in that, if this person's close to me, I should be able to trust them. And that's not always true.
And there's history there too, though, right? There's history of that person. So I mean, online dating was great for me, because I could, you just go and you pick out what you want, you window shop, and you can. When I first started online dating, I wasn't very honest about my intentions, and all I was looking for was to get laid. And I would not necessarily represent myself like that. Like, that's all I wanted. And, I think that there's a lot of guys out there that do, because guess what? There's that fear. If I tell you what I want, then that may not be what you want. And then you'll just leave. Right.
Yep.
And
so then there's that abandonment thing, which is also part of a tribe. So
And so I'll lie to you and tell you what I think you want to get me what I want, and then just
And it's
bounce later
win-lose
on.
again. Yeah, because
You
you're
know?
scared. Yeah, but technology is a tool, and tools are shortcuts. So that was a very efficient use of a tool for you.
So Roman Jones chimed in again. She said, "Is that maybe because we spend most of our time in our subconscious mind?"
I
And that,
don't know what the that is in that sentence. I think we've
yeah, I think we moved past that, and I missed the cue to shoot it up there at the right time. Sometimes that happens, guys. So I apologize if
it's live.
I don't get to your question as quickly as like right when you're saying. So if you want to chime back in and let me know what is that referring to, and then we can answer that question. Jackie with a bunch of numbers, almost it's like my driver's license number, says, "Is the young teen generation in trouble because of lack of human contact?"
I think a little bit. I mean, I know that they call it Gen Z. They have already been labeled stressed and depressed. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
That's not a nice label.
I'm sorry?
That's a harsh label to live like.
It's harsh. And that's my kids. So I have a soft spot for harsh labels. I don't really like labels, but anyway.
Yeah.
I think yes, that's true, because they don't like, I'm an Xer, so I had like a childhood that was not not online. And then there's this sub generation called the Xennials, which are between X and millennial, and they had analog childhoods but online young adulthoods. And then the millennials were pretty much online the whole time, right? And if anything, that is the label I will accept, because that's an experience you're having as a group of people. It's almost like, what's the word I want? I can't come up with it. Anyway, I don't like labeling people, but I don't mind labeling people as far as their generation, because that is what affects how you process the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I do have hope for the younger generation, because they seem to be less inclined to be like they're more inclusive. You know, they don't see color, they don't see race, they don't see any of the type of things that our generation grew up with the boomers, and their views towards, you know, let's say blacks or, you know, other races and stuff like that, or just being segregated or us versus them. They're way more inclusive.
Yeah, they're moving toward win-win. They are. It's awesome.
Yeah, that
it's
part
awesome,
is good.
But it's also very difficult.
No, go ahead, Aurora. I cut you off. Sorry.
It's awesome, but it's also difficult, because they grow up in an environment where they feel a certain way, but the society is not reflecting how they feel. The society is reflecting exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's hard, I imagine, to express yourself then and to feel okay with what you feel is right and wrong. And that's why they're probably totally stressed out and depressed. I can see that.
Yeah, I think they're not liking the hierarchy that is still part of society. And we do that out of desperation, because there's so many of us. How else are we going to, you know, categorize ourselves or coordinate with each other unless we do have these pockets of hierarchy? We have a president of a company, we have blah, blah, blah. But it's really just harkened back to our time when we couldn't talk to each other. It's just out of desperation that we are dependent on these hierarchies and categorization. And I think the younger generations are kind of like, okay, this is a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good evolution, but it's tough to
It's tough to get out of that hierarchy because that's all that we're like, how else would we do it? Just be a big blob. I mean, it's too scary to like trust everyone you meet, right? You need to like decide. So complicated.
Yeah.
This is where my conspiracy mind starts kicking in. All right. And so you have this generation that's not not really susceptible to the divide and conquer sort of mentality that we see coming from mainstream media, we see coming from the government, we see coming from, and these are all tools of control, right? If we could divide you and have you fighting amongst each other, then you're not paying attention to and talking about, what we're doing to you, basically, right?
You lose the big picture.
Yeah. And so now, the one thing is that, with schools and all of the different things that they've done, like, I can't remember what the name of the type of school that they're in right now or the curriculum that they're studying, but there's no critical thinking that's being taught in the younger generation. And then as they separate, they started taking everybody and putting them away at home and doing the online education and causing more of that stress and what did you call them? Stress and depression within those generations. So now where they could have been, okay, they're in line to take over in a way that wouldn't keep these particular folks in power anymore if they were allowed to flourish like they were going to be doing. So now something's been implemented to, A, let's take away their critical thinking, and B, let's stress them and depress them and keep them from expressing themselves in a way that could possibly, take over in a positive way for humanity.
Right. If the divide and conquer is pretty scary stuff. But I will say that my kids are learning critical thinking. I think there are pockets of critical thinking still out there. And Roman says exactly. So I still have hope though, because in my head, there are groups of people that want to manipulate us, but in my head, they're my conspiracy mind is mostly focused on businesses because they want to make money. In my head, government, their purpose isn't to make money, it's to, like you said, control people. But I just don't have that kind of ominous feeling for government. I think they mean well, but it's hard to control such a large group of people, and the tools that we use to do it, they don't really work. I mean, because there's too many people. Like our brains are used to 100, 150 people. And so they do their best and they kind of suck sometimes. But the automaton idea of like kids isolated, they're not going to school in groups as often. That's kind of scary to me because we need to like have checks and balances and kind of, if you're isolated and you only learn what your family knows, then how are you going to get along with other people? And that kind of worries me a little bit.
Yeah, there's no socialization skills. Like you even have to socialize your animals. Like you have a dog, you take them to the dog park so you can socialize them and get them used to.
People know that about their animals, but maybe not their children, just because they want to protect them. And it's not, I don't think they're being mean. I think it's that win-lose thing. It's like, why take the risk? And we have to take risks if we're going to get along.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
Totally agree to that.
Watching kids develop. Like I have a almost 4-year-old, and like just seeing how how she interacts with the world as she's learning different things and learning how to try to manipulate us, right? And doing that whole, well, let me see how far I can go with this. And, it's like, that's ingrained. It's like, it's like the same thing that, like, how ducks know to fly south for the winter, right? Like, how do you know that? It's just that DNA thing, that genetic thing that's in your DNA, that's a part of the fabric of your life now. You just
It's a
know it.
survival skill.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. You don't have kids yet, do you, Aurora?
No, I don't have kids, but I was a kid once. And it's fascinating how, yeah, when you imagine the fetus, the baby in the belly has nothing to worry about. They have the food, they have the shelter, they just swim around, and then all of a sudden you're being thrown into this world and you're totally dependent and you can't speak, and you have to, like, with your body, like, get the attention. And then of course your brain learns that and knows that, oh, when I do a certain thing, I get the attention. And then when you learn to speak, you will use your words to get what you need. And yeah, it's I can't imagine to having a small one and to see how they manipulate you and to see how you want to give them what they need, but at the same time you're like, oh, they got so much control over my sleep and my well-being now. It's incredible. And Annette, what you say about the new generation, I wanted to add that we see depression and aggression always as a very negative thing, and it is feelings and phases in our lives that are very difficult to go through, but it's also the phase where we learn most about ourselves and the people around us. And like, I just thought, if that generation really is going through anxiety and depression, they will be able to one day, maybe not right now, but to wake us up and show us, okay, this is really sick. We have to do things differently. And I'm trying to see the good thing in the bad there.
No, I agree with you totally, because
And depression gives you, sorry, I just want to finish.
no, yes,
Depression can give you so much depth and insight that you would otherwise, if you just float around like averagely happily, never achieve. So I just wanted to say that.
no, that's exactly what I was going to say. And so you said it way better than me, but you learn things when you're depressed.
Yeah.
And I think that when people are worried that they feel depressed, sometimes you're supposed to be, because you're figuring something out.
Exactly.
And if this generation they're slammed with all the information.
Yeah.
If you were an offline kid, you got the information, it was spoon-fed to you. As a kid online, you get slammed with everything, and maybe they're just processing it all, and they're gonna, like, come out as adults and have a lot more figured out than we do.
Oh yeah.
But I want to say at the same time, that doesn't mean we need to give up.
No.
I get tired of people saying, oh, the next generation will fix it. It's like, we can do something too.
Yeah, no, they just show us how numbed up we are and how we have to be sensitive again and come back to the heart, come back to community. They will teach us, and we have to be actively listening. We can't quit. No,
100%.
Yeah.
And when we look back at the older generations, like Annette, your mom, your parents, your grandparents, mine, because we're kind of in the same, Gen X. I think I fall into the one where I know what it was like before the internet, and on it afterwards, and I know what a rotary phone is, and all those things. And our parents, they lived in a generation where expressing your feelings wasn't okay.
Right.
Where, you know,
Mhm.
talking about, you know, your losses wasn't allowed, you know, and it's a weakness. It's don't be vulnerable. Don't do any of the things that we need,
To
because
connect with each other.
yeah, because all of the magic is in the struggle, right? Everything that we need to, you know, fail forward is in that struggle. And, you know, I think that people resonate more with your losses than they do with your wins,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
in each other, right?
Yeah, because
And
you're in the
that's
same boat.
and yeah, and I think that's what, you know, like applications like Clubhouse are so popular right now, is because people are getting have a way to connect with each other that isn't Instagram, that isn't all about the wins, that isn't all about, you know, hey, look at my highlights, woo, a beautiful life, you know.
And
It's
is
like,
that
dude,
reality? Probably not.
no, it's yeah, you have a beautiful couple hours out of a week, but the rest of that week is full of, you know, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, you know, somebody's cheating on me, or I have an opportunity to cheat on them, or, you know, just all kinds of different things that come through in a regular week, right? The gamut of, you know, difficulties and struggles, and, you know, hey, am I going to be able to pay the bills this week, or, you know, like, anything, you know, it could be. It's not just the wins are way less than the losses.
Yeah, it's a fantasy sometimes.
Roman, growth happens during times of tribulation. When you're happy, you're not really growing. Without one, the other doesn't have any weight. It's about balance. Yeah, that's true too.
Mhm.
Where'd you come from, Roman?
Mhm.
Speaking all these truths.
Yeah.
Are we friends? If not, request me, because I like
Yeah,
what you have to
please
say.
add us.
So, is there anything else that we want to touch on? Anybody else out there that's watching? We got about 7 viewers right now, which is pretty good, man. Thank you for participating, everybody out there. If you have any more questions or anything you want to say, feel free to drop them in the chat. Oh, she said, just randomly stumbled across the live show. Well, thank you. I'm glad you stumbled
Awesome.
across.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen for a reason.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah, the universe always manages to put the right people together, right?
Yeah, you just got to stay calm until it
Oh,
happens.
yes, that's the hard part.
That's the really hard part, because we think we can control everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the craziest concept for me to get ever, when I was trying to get through my addiction and all the other stuff that I was going through, was surrender to win. And as a team sports person, that was such a weird concept, when we're always, I was ingrained, like, to win, to win, to win. You don't give up, you know, like, especially, you know, when I would think about, you know, times when I would be so, like, I didn't know what to do, and I would start thinking about, oh, well, you know, maybe exiting would be the right move, because then I wouldn't have to deal with all of this stuff that I created for myself. But then, you know, I was like, oh, no, if you do that, you're going to lose, you know, you can't let things beat you. You can't let things, you got to win at all costs. But when I got the concept of surrender to win, which was me not giving up, but it meant stop fighting everything, stop trying to control everything, just let things happen as they will, and do the right thing, do the next right thing, keep doing the next right thing, and stop kind of control everything in your life. And things started to become a lot easier. I'm not saying they're perfect, but the
No, but that's the
self-awareness.
that's like the ebb and flow. Like, if you're stuck in win-lose, that can get really tiring. And if you go to win-win, like, what say it again?
What?
Say that.
Oh, surrender to win.
Surrender to win.
Uh-huh.
That's very win-win. That's like reach out, find out who you can relate to, and work with them. But that's risky if you have the option of controlling.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do that in my relationship now.
Great.
Is there like on an hormonal level when it comes to like cortisol or dopamine, like is there a level that we might have gotten used to during our childhood, like a stress level, but then it's also our chemistry who adapted to that we are trying to recreate?
I think
And,
so. It's familiar.
yeah. Again, the familiar, but that can be changed, right? When you like with meditation, with new approaches, with new connections, that can all that's not set in stone. That's my question.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not a medical person, but as long as the first step is becoming aware of when the fear kicks in, because that
Yeah.
cortisol, the adrenaline, all that is automatic. And it's
Yeah.
possible that some people are a little more jumpy, if that's a word.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of knowing that it's happening.
Yeah.
Because when, back in the day, that was a survival skill that was really handy. And I think we go there more often than we realize.
Mm.
So it's just kind of you can't control your reactions, but you can kind of own up. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
And be like, okay, I'm gonna calm down. Just give me a minute, and then try again. Like you said, the next best action. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Very good.
Something I heard somewhere. Regurgitating.
We just imitate. We're not that different from any other living thing.
Yeah, and I'm not that smart either. So I mean, I take a lot of stuff that I hear in different places that sound really really smart, and regurgitate them out. And I try them too. And a lot of the times, the things that work, I'll talk about, right?
Yeah, well, you're building a philosophy. And you're building your balloon.
Yeah.
And we all need that, right?
I'm philosophical. I never
You
thought about that.
are.
Huh. Maybe I ought to put that on. I ought to
Yeah.
put that somewhere.
It's on your Nowhere But Up page. It's been classified on Spotify as philosophical. I don't know if you
Oh no, I didn't know that.
just philosophy.
Oh, philosophy. That's
Shut
right.
up.
That's a category I'm in on.
Yeah.
I guess on my
On Spotify.
host. Yeah, on my hosting platform.
You're smart.
I just wanted to hear you say that. That's all. No, I'm just kidding.
For an hour, we've been talking just so you can hear that I think you're smart.
Yeah.
What do you need, Aurora? What do you need? No.
What do I need? Okay,
What do you need?
I'm gonna read here. Robert Page. Nothing new under the sun. We take what we come across, and as a life, we're born philosophers. Yeah, we just gotta allow it. We just gotta let it all out, right? And not be scared.
Yep.
Live in love and not
Very
be
good.
scared.
Live in trust.
Oh, trust.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't
Not
love unless you can't love unless you trust.
Yeah. Trust is first.
Oh, that's a tough one though.
I know, but try trust.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good that's a good thing. So next time we'll see when we come back, Aurora, for number 4, we'll see implementing trust in our life and see if we can't what we come up with for the next one.
Yes. Oh, I have so much to yeah, I think we can talk about what we discussed here and then what happened in the last couple of weeks between episode 2 and 3, and yeah.
Oh yeah,
Very exciting.
Lots happened between 2 and 3, huh?
Yes. Yes.
I can't wait.
And if any of you guys out there that are viewing right now are watching this, and you like Annette, you want to come on, and maybe you've experienced some sort of abusive behavior in your life. Maybe you are an abuser, or have been abused, or you're on that spectrum of just being touched by it. Feel more than welcome to reach out to us like Annette did through the email. Nowhere to go but up now at gmail.com, or any of the other places. Like, you can reach out to Aurora on her page, and I'll let her say where she's at. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to load up all of these things like I normally do on my show. Getting a little bit sick, so I was kind of I was laying down until about like 20 minutes before this thing started, and I got up and tried to get ready real quick. Full disclosure.
Wow. So, John.
All right, we got a couple more comments here. Cavedwellerclub.com is where you can find Annette. That's her website.
Can I interject one quick thing?
Mm-hmm.
So my website has a bunch of stories about Cave Girl Claire, and that's the way I kind of introduce, hunter-gatherer ideas and how you can apply them to modern day. So it's kind of a tidal wave of information. So just as an example, I'm going to recommend that, Sean, if you end up going to my website, look at my blog and read just 2 of the 28 blog posts. I'm going to recommend Meet Claire and To Fan is Human. And for Aurora, I'm going to recommend Meet Claire and The World According to Claire.
I will check it out.
So it's just kind of like a little introductory thing.
So I'm writing it down. So Meet Claire, and what was the second one?
Meet Claire, and the second one for you is To Fan is Human.
To Fan.
To follow, to fan.
Awesome. I'll take a look at it.
Groovy. Thank you so much. That was so fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you for making it fun.
We got one more question and then we'll cut out of here. Okay. Jackie says, does anxiety have a more negative spin on today's society versus it being a good trait when we were running from tigers?
Yes. But we can't just shut it off. But if we're aware of it, it helps.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there you go there, Jackie. Hope that helped you. And I really appreciate everybody commenting and participating. That really makes these things a lot funner when you have audience participation, and it really just adds to the whole pizzazz of what we got going on here, right?
Yeah.
So, Aurora, why don't you go ahead and take us out? I think I've hogged up most of the time here on on this live stream.
Thank you so much, Sean. Yeah, I think it was very insightful, like very good to hear a professional, someone who's like very in depth or very insightful about the human psyche to talk about abuse and to have like a different angle, that abuse is very negative and very destructive, but it comes from a place of fear and distrust. And when we, Sean and I'm going to put us together in a box, hear that, it will make us aware that we can learn to be more like trustworthy, but also to trust other people again. And we know maybe that we have a second chance, that we're not like stuck in the abusive box, but can get out of there if we want to. And you make it very clear that we have a choice, that in the past we maybe felt like we didn't have a choice. We were too scared and not reflected enough. But now you gave us a bunch of tools that we can work with and feel more empowered and more secure. and less abusive.
We're all in the same boat. So
Yeah. No, that was wonderful. And if people want to reach out to us, you have Sean's email. I'm on Facebook, Aurora Eggert, or the Borealis Experience podcast. And I'm very excited about our next episode.
Yeah, I
Me
got to
too.
make sure not to take so long in between. I've been super busy this last month, so yeah, we'll try and get more on a schedule, and we'll revisit and talk when we get off of this thing, and we'll figure out more of a schedule to be on for it. I think we were talking. We were wanting to do every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll do this a little bit more often. And Robert says, thanks to all who made this stream happen. Well, you're welcome, Robert.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Thank you for being here.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Annette. So nice to meet you.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend, a pleasant day, and be nice to each other.
We'll try.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.